Nutrition is the world's only truly personalized vitamin platform. The only one. Now that's a bold statement, because I know you're in a lot of your head, you're like, hold on, I know I've heard of these other things, but let's go and take a look at what I mean by that. First, you have to start out with simplistic definition of what personalized is. You guys know how I love, the dictionary, and I love words because they matter. This adjective has a meaning to certain people in the world, but see, IDLife has its own definition of what personalized is. And when you understand the definition, then you understand what makes IDLife different. Because it's that last part, without compromising their health and wellness. ID Nutrition does, and more importantly, the assessment that goes along with it, it looks at what makes you you. All the aspects of what makes you you, from your diet to your lifestyle, to the environment in which you live and interact, stress, sleep, exercise, medical conditions, prescription drugs, symptoms, and your genetics. In fact, when you look at it as a visual, one of the things that you see is we actually look at the entire person. We have a few outcomes that are possible at IDLife. Personalized to me isn't, hey, I've got 5 options, which one do you fit into? Personalized to me is we have over 3.9 million possible outcomes. Now, that's the personalized aspect of what makes IDLife different. But what about our quality? Are you guys happy with the quality of IDLife products?
Yes.
But have you ever thought about what goes into it? Product that IDLife manufactures and delivers to you and your customers. So you ready to take this with me?
Yes.
All right, here we go. So, we follow a pharma-level CGMP quality program. What that means is good manufacturing practices put out by the FDA for pharmaceutical manufacturing. Not supplement manufacturing, pharmaceutical manufacturing. What does that mean? We start out with pure ingredients, real items, real things. But guess what? We have to stop, because we have to send it in for testing to make sure that, hey, it's exactly what it's supposed to be in the amount that it's supposed to be, and it's not contaminated with anything. Then we follow the CGMP manufacturing process, and guess what? We stop again. Why? We're going to test it again, just to make sure nothing happened, because humans are involved in the process and mistakes happen. Then everything is delivered to IDLife. And guess what happens? We stop again. We send it out to an independent lab to verify the first lab's results. Then it's delivered to you. To sell a nutraceutical to you, you, the consumer, have to prove that it's unsafe for us to stop. We don't have to prove that it's safe to sell it to you.
Wow. Yeah, I know.
So, but your industry isn't regulated by the FDA. Oh, yeah, trust me, we are. We are. But we're considered a food. Now, let me let this set in. That means everything that you see on a store shelf in a grocery store is treated the same way. You have to prove that it's unsafe for them to stop giving it to you as a food before it has to come off the shelf. See, that's why I always tell people you have to understand how the system works to understand how to do better. This is something that we do because it's the right thing to do, and we have done this since day one. That makes us different, but guess what? It doesn't answer the question. The scientific why. Why you need each recommended vitamin or mineral, okay? But don't get lost in the why, because here's the main thing about the why that a lot of people lose. The why also tells you what you can change so that you actually don't need the supplement. Do you know another company that tells you, hey, if you'll just make these life changes, you don't need what we're selling you anymore? But to somebody, now when you're saying, hey, click on that why, it's not only telling you why you need it, it's also telling you what you do so that you don't need it anymore. Science to back it up. I do that for all my doctors. One of the best things about, our SciMed board and every other doctor I've ever spoken to, I always get the same question. I love it. I'm ready for it. I never show them the why button. Okay? And then they ask this question, well, what science do you have to prove that? I was like, I'm glad you asked. I've got over 13,000 independent studies to prove what I'm telling you, but guess what? They're updated every single month, so it may have changed since the last time I looked at it. Because we're looking at tens of thousands of articles every single year and updating the system constantly. What's another way that we could answer the question? Innovation. It's distinguishing a leader and a follower. ID Nutrition is constantly evolving and innovating. In fact, In 2023 alone, all of those upgrades. We give you an owner's manual. We show you on the left side your habits. Hey, this is what you're doing on a daily basis is affecting your health in a positive or negative way. Daily habits are impacting your life in a positive or negative way. It actually tells you how to make changes. Oh yeah, so you need less of what it is we're trying to recommend to you. The architecture, your DNA. You guys like the DNA?
Yep.
You know, one of the things I told the group last night is our DNA is absolutely stellar. It's an amazing product. Okay? It tells people things about themselves that they had no idea about. But it's an absolutely useless thing if you don't use the gap tool and put it into action. You understand, this didn't exist in the world. We tried for 3 years to find a partner that could help us interpret our genetic, because it's a medical grade genetic test, not a SNP test that looks at 1% of your DNA and tells you, it extrapolates out with an algorithm what the rest of you might look like with an accuracy rate of 54%. Yeah, read that, 23andMe stuff if you want to. But at the end of the day, what we do is we actually show you how to put your stuff into action. And the people that have gotten absolutely amazing results. But that doesn't answer the question either. How many of you have ever gotten what does this DNA marker mean? What does this mean? What does this MTHFR thing? What does this inflation gene mean? Did you know that we have 20 videos for you that explain every single one of those markers in a simple way?
In the app.
Use them. They're there. You do not have to become a genetics expert. You don't. I'm not a genetics expert. I'm a regurgitator of information. I have the ability to take a lot in and spit a lot out in an easier way to understand it. If you've ever come on a tour with IDLife and you've ever stepped in front of our glass wall, because I love most of all that we built a glass wall with ID Nutrition, because guess what? You can't hide behind a glass wall. I always say something, and I have for every year that we've been around, but I've never highlighted it in the way that I'm about to for you. The most important thing that we do in the ID Nutrition room is what we keep you from taking, not what we recommend that you do take. Yes. We call it the IDLife Shield. The Shield is the most important thing that ID Nutrition has. And I'm about to show you one. See, because earlier I said we're the only. And you're probably sitting there shaking your head. You're like, hold on, I've heard of Care of. I've heard of Persona. You can't be the only. I mean, I've had people send me other companies, genetic companies and blood companies and questionnaire companies. They're popping up all over the place. But let's just look at Care of and Persona real quick. Yeah, they're just like IDLife, right? Yeah, I mean, they're the same thing. They're doing the same thing, right? Does it look like they are doing what we do?
Nope.
What's funny is one of these companies actually, when they first launched, copied our questionnaire.
Oh, man.
They asked the same questions. Somebody sent it to me and said, you should sue. And I'm like, no, imitation is flattering. Because guess what? They don't have what's behind it to back up what it is they're saying. Because their science says vitamin C does this. Our science says vitamin C is needed by you because you answered the question this way and it's needed in this amount at this time of day because you do the following things. And oh, by the way, if you change these things, you don't need it anymore. What about blood tests? What about questionnaire only? What about genetics? Now, I want to introduce you to somebody. I called him Jim. I should have called him Steve. You're about to see why. I mean, this was not intentional. This is my subconscious working. I saw Steve and I was like, man, I found your doppelganger.
Oh my God.
Steve is 59. He's on the SAD diet, that standard American thing. Steve's got some issues going on. He's got some heart conditions, his medication, cholesterol, high blood pressure, blood thinner. He's got some things happening. But you know what? When he comes to IDLife, he takes the assessment. Great. And in the assessment, the first thing that Steve is going to tell us is what he needs and what he wants. Now remember, needs and wants are not recommendations that IDLife provides. You tell us what you need and what you want by the way you answer the questions. And as a result of that, guess what? All of these wonderful things pop up in the back. These are all the things that Jim needs and wants. But then what happens is we have to throw it through the IDLife Shield. Because when you throw it through the shield, what ends up happening is it starts looking at all the needs and wants, and it's like, these are all okay, that's fine, that looks good. But, oh, there's a warning. And, oh, we have some issues here. What's happening? We're getting red lines. It's called the blocks.
Yeah, I love that.
See, because when Jim actually gets his recommendations, it looks like something like this. And in the background, what it's also doing is saying, oh, you know that magnesium that you need because of your sleep issue, we're actually going to have to move that to the AM pack, because if we put it in the PM, that's when you're taking that blood thinner, and they bind together and it makes some really nasty things happen. And oh, by the way, those other things that you really do need, you can't have them either, because if we gave them to you, you know, that blood thinner is going to cause some major issues for you. In fact, it's a hell of a lot more harmful to you than it would be helpful to you, and most likely you're going to end up in a hospital somewhere.
And most people don't take that.
You see, now he's just going to take his blood test and get his recommendations. When he took his blood test, Jim saw these, because guess what? The blood test says, hey, you're deficient in these 4 categories. Guess what it missed? It missed all of these other things that Jim needs. But most importantly, it did this. It forgot about magnesium being in the morning, and, oh yeah, it also recommended vitamin E because he was low, but it contraindicates with his blood thinner. There's your blood test. So, okay, fine. What about genetics? There's a lot of genetics company out there that a genetics test, listen to this, a genetics test can only tell you how your body metabolizes a nutrient. It cannot tell you what you need.
Right.
It makes me extremely angry when these genetics companies are telling people, I can tell you what vitamins you need based upon your genes. That is not true. They have to know what your diet and lifestyle are. They have to know a lot of information to tell you you need something. They can tell you how your body metabolizes it. That's all they can do. So let's look at the genetics one. Because when you look at this, guess what? Hey, you have a vitamin E deficiency. We know that genetically. High inflammation. Hey, we got some of these. The genetics test missed this. By the way, if you're on a statin drug and you're not taking CoQ10, big issue. In fact, if you look at the warning at Health Canada, it says the statin may stop the heart attack, but it may cause heart failure. Why? Because the body stops producing CoQ10. But what else did this wonderful genetics test do? It gave him 2 things that could actually hurt him. So, let's go to the questionnaire. What if the company copied every question that IDLife asks? Okay? And guess what ends up happening? Hey, it got really lucky. It got all of them. In fact, it didn't really miss anything. It actually got all of his wants and needs in one place. But it forgot about the magnesium and the blood thinners, and now Jim's in a really bad place. So if you want to see what happens when you talk about blood tests and genetics tests and questionnaires only, this is the dangers of these things. Now, am I trying to scare you? No, this has nothing to do with scare. This has everything to do with training you on what makes us different, but most importantly, let's get back to the real thing. The real thing is, what makes ID Nutrition better than blank? Here's the 1-sentence response that you're going to have forever that's going to answer it. The IDLife Shield protects you from taking something you want or need that would cause you harm.